This is Morning Motivation for Educators on the Bee Podcast Network. Learn about all the shows at beepodcastnetwork.com. You'll hear from a variety of formal and informal educators who help put this podcast together. If you'd like to contribute your voice to the show, please go to morningmotivationedu.com to apply. I am Karen Dudek-Brannan. I was a school SLP for 14 years where I specialized in language literacy and executive functioning and also held various teaching, leadership, and research roles. Now, I am the host of the De facto Leaders podcast on the Bee Podcast Network, where I help school therapists, teachers, and administrators be leaders on their school teams no matter their job title. Lately, in some of the programs that I run for related service providers and special education professionals is the question of how do I ask my coworkers to do something that is in the best interest for my students, but may come across like I'm asking for a favor from them. One example would be if there is a therapist or special ed teacher who is working with students in a special education setting, and maybe they want to work with the general education teacher and ask them to do some accommodations in their classroom or make some changes to help the students be more successful. Or this could even go the other way around. Maybe it's the general education teacher who is asking the person providing support to do something. So I get questions like this all the time. How can I ask people to do things that require them to change the things that they're currently doing? So one of the things that you want to understand if you are in a situation like this, and I always tell people, one of the number one reasons why teachers don't follow through with recommendations from therapists, for example, is because the things that are being recommended are just not feasible for them. And it's coming across like you're putting something else on their plate when their plate is already really full. So a lot of times when you ask someone to do something for you that is for your students and they don't follow through, it's not because they don't respect you. It's not because they don't want to follow through or don't care about the students. It's typically because they either aren't really sure what you're actually asking them to do, or maybe the way that you framed it isn't feasible for them, and it's just really hard for them to follow through based on the support that they have available to them. My number one thing that I recommend people do if they are in a situation where they do want to approach their coworker about doing something is to, number one, get really clear on what are the challenges that that person is facing. What are their, number one things that they're struggling with in their classroom, in their therapy room, whatever it is. Be really clear with the things that are on their radar that they're sharing with you that are big problems for them or things that are kind of their daily headaches that they're dealing with. Then when you figure out what is it that you're asking from them, what you want to do is find a way to present it so that it is clear that what you are asking them to do is actually going to take work off their plate. And one way that you can do that is to tie it to something that is on their radar, that they're telling you is a problem. So for example, in the case of a therapist approaching a teacher, maybe the teacher is saying, wow, I have a lot of students who just aren't on track with their work. They're always a couple steps behind. Maybe they're seeing some behaviors in their classroom. So that therapist who's making a recommendation about some kind of a strategy that might be tied to one of their IEP goals should make sure that it's clear that yes, you might be making some changes to your practice, but over time, this is actually going to solve a problem that you already have. And in the long run, it's going to take work off your plate. So the question that I always ask people if they say, I asked someone to do something, they didn't follow through is, does it sound like you're putting more work on their plate? And if it does, is there a way that you can frame it or even structure what you're asking from them in a way that actually takes work off their plate? Because that is a very common reason why people don't follow through. It's not because they don't want to. It's not because they don't respect you as a professional. It might be something on their end that is making it difficult for them. And maybe even they think that your plan is great, but they don't believe that they're going to be able to do it successfully. And that's where you can come in and be a really great support and start to develop a really good working relationship. So if you are asking for a favor from your colleagues, you always want to think about, how can I make this person's life easier? If you are a related service provider or someone who is involved in providing specialized supports in the school systems in some way, I talk about issues like this on the De facto Leaders podcast with different experts, professionals, and I also share my own professional experience. You can check all the episodes out at defactoleaders.com. Thanks for listening, and whatever role you have in education, we have a podcast for you at bpodcastnetwork.com. Who among your friends and colleagues needs to hear this message today? Please share it with them right now.